Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm very interested in this subject, and I certainly commend Mr. Garrett on the legislation. But I do think we need to really exhaust these concerns that we have about a loss of consumer and investor protections in the area. The reason I'm acquainted with somewhat with this is, as a student at the Wharton School of Finance, we did a student project at that time, and this is why I commend Mr. Garrett, because access to capital is a very serious problem, particularly in the minority community with minority African-American owned businesses, and we put together a forum, venture capital effort then, to help those companies in the Philadelphia area. So my question going back to that is that if for example, the new ventures exchanges have permissive or what we call de minimis listing standards, and the securities traded on these exchanges become exempt from the state blue sky laws, does that give rise to any investor protection concerns? And particularly, Mr. Bullard, I'd like for you to answer that question, and Mr. Gruszewski, you represent SIFMA, correct, the financial institutions. I think that to help Mr. Garrett smooth sailing with this bill, we really definitely need to clear the air on this little hurdle of a great concern that consumer protections may be deflated. Could you answer that question first? Mr. Bullard, Ms. Gruszewski, anybody else too?
I guess I would separate the investor protection between the exchange-provided protection and the exemption from state regulation. Frankly, to answer the question asked, I think, by Mr. Carney earlier, is that the exchanges already let you take your investors to town, and we accept that they have very low listing standards and that a lot of them will fail and that there will be potential investor abuses. My main objection is that the venture exchange would operate outside of the system that the SEC has currently been authorized by Congress to administer. It's by removing all of Reg ATS and all of Reg NMS, which are not principally investor protection provisions, but do include some. Congress is essentially undoing its own work and creating something that becomes another breed where you would definitely see new investor protection concerns arising. On the state registration side, I just haven't seen out of Congress a coherent approach of when, if ever, they think state merit review is appropriate. Now, if Congress just wants to eliminate states altogether, that's one thing, but to arbitrarily have cutoffs as to when the states are allowed to regulate small offerings, especially when it's flatly consistent with what I understood to be the deal when the Jobs Act was on a bipartisan basis approved, I think is inappropriate.
Mr. Gruszewski?
Yes, I would just say that I think it's very important at the highest level to separate investor protection from the liquidity and the market access that we're trying to achieve. I don't think this bill in any way, or not, I shouldn't say in any way, to the extent that you increase liquidity and capital, you have more companies that potentially can fail, and that's part of capitalism. So I'm not going to suggest that. But this cannot be about investor protection. It's not. This is about, in many ways, undoing some of the things that have destroyed the ecosystem for small companies. And many of the rules that were put in place has destroyed the ability to do this. I represent many companies that we have to sell that could be job-creating machines because they do not have access to the capital markets out of certain of their growth funds, or their growth stages. And so I believe this is a very important issue, and it's not an investor protection issue. It's a liquidity issue and a trading issue for small companies. Excuse me.
And the both of you are very comfortable that the SEC has the resources available to monitor these new exchanges and the securities traded on them?
No, I don't believe that it does.
Well, they're already trading. Many of these are already trading. I don't understand that comment. They're already trading. We're talking about providing a marketplace that supports the growth and formation of small companies and, by an extension, jobs in this country.
The complexity of the markets, really came from all the legislation and all the rulemaking that created Reg ATS and NMS and decimalization, the proliferation of trading venues. There's over 50 trading venues, and that in and of itself has put the SEC on this treadmill of trying to keep up with the sheer volume of complexity that's occurred. These markets will actually be much simpler. And interestingly, Congressman Scott, if you listen to the language coming out of the SEC is questioning openly now the wisdom behind one-size-fits-all markets. There's definitely an interest on the part of the Commission in reexamining this along the lines of what I think this bill does.
Thank you for your courtesy, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And so